In this video, you'll learn about the structure, location, and function of the four major types of membrane.
Tissue membranes are continuous, flat multicellular sheets that cover or line body parts. There are two major types, two broad categories of tissue membranes. Connective tissue membranes that are composed of only connective tissue. The example shown here is a synovial membrane that lines the joint cavity and produces a synovial fluid in order to lubricate the joint. The other broad category of tissue membranes is epithelial membranes. Epithelial membranes include mucous membranes that line the digestive, respiratory, urinary, and reproductive tracts and are coated with mucus, a secretion that comes from glands found within the epithelium that secrete mucus in order to lubricate, moisturize the surface. Serous membranes line our ventral body cavities. There are the peritoneal membrane lining the abdominal cavity, pleural membrane lining the lungs, and pericardial membrane lining the heart. And then serous membranes have two layers, a parietal layer and a visceral layer. The parietal layer lines the cavity wall, and the visceral layer lines the organ. And there is a serous fluid secreted in between those two layers. For example, we have a parietal layer of the pleural membrane lining the thoracic cavity surrounding the lung, but the surface of the lung is covered with the visceral layer of the pleural membrane, and then there is fluid in between those two layers inside the pleural cavity. Similarly, there is a visceral layer of the pericardium which covers the surface of the heart, and a parietal layer of the pericardium which lines the walls of the pericardial cavity. And there's a parietal layer of the peritoneum lining the walls of the abdominal cavity, and a visceral layer of the peritoneum lining the surface of the intestines. The epithelium found in serous membranes is a simple squamous epithelium. That means there's just one layer of flat cells. So a very thin layer of flat cells, also known as a mesothelium. The mesothelium is the specific name for the simple squamous epithelium found in a serous membrane. And then there is some loose connective tissue proper in between the simple squamous epithelium, supporting the simple squamous epithelium and anchoring it to the other surfaces of the body. And this is an areolar connective tissue, which is a loose connective tissue proper that provides some space for blood vessels to travel through. The cutaneous membrane is the skin, and the cutaneous membrane has a stratified squamous epithelium that contains keratin. So a stratified squamous epithelium has multiple layers, why it's stratified, and it's squamous, meaning that the surface cells are flat. So stratified squamous epithelium has multiple layers of cells, and the cells at the surface of the epithelium are flat. The cells facing the apical surface are flat or squamous. So stratified squamous epithelium is forming the epidermis, that is the superficial layer of the cutaneous membrane. And then underneath that, there's connective tissue forming the dermis. As we study the integumentary system, we'll see the types of connective tissue in the layers of the dermis. There's a papillary layer of areolar connective tissue and a reticular layer of dense irregular connective tissue found underneath the stratified squamous epithelium of the epidermis. The epidermis also contains keratin, which is a protein that's produced as an intermediate filament inside of the epithelial cells. And as the epithelial cells mature and move towards the surface, they produce a large amount of keratin. Eventually, those epithelial cells die, and the remaining keratin provides strength to the cutaneous membrane to resist abrasion. As we study epithelia in more detail, we'll see different types of epithelia that are found in mucous membranes. That the mucous membrane in the intestines has a simple columnar epithelium that is just one layer of tall cells, whereas there's a stratified squamous epithelium in the esophagus and oral cavity. So mucous membranes can have a variety of different types of epithelia, whereas the cutaneous membrane has a stratified squamous epithelium with keratin, and the serous membranes have a simple squamous epithelium.